For 20 years, I built a life, a home, a reputation. People in this town trusted me. Then I came home early. I saw her. I saw Mark, my wife and her own stepbrother. I didn't break anything. I didn't shout. I did what no betrayed husband dares to do. I smiled. I kept her close. I fed them dinner. Because while they thought they were winning their little secret game, I was building the most beautiful, devastating trap of my life. They took my heart. I took everything else. Most mornings I open the hardware store before the sun lifts over the grain silos. I wipe the oak counter with lemon oil until it shines and smells like Saturday at my grandmother's house. The bell over the door gives that soft double ding when I flip the sign to open. The ceiling fan ticks every third turn. Tick, tick, tick like a metronome that refuses to be perfect. I keep meaning to fix it. I don't. The sound calms me. It says the day is starting the way it always starts. Folks in this town like things steady. Our rotary meets the first Thursday. The county clerk stamps with the same tired thump she's used since '98. At Founders Day, we all clap for the marching band whether they're good or not. Reputation matters here more than shine. A clean name is like a level shelf. You set something on it and it stays put. I'm 52 and I've run Haynes Hardware since my father passed, though most people just call it the shop. We sell screws by the handful, cut, keys, match paint to a memory someone brings in on a paper napkin. I've got regulars who come for coffee and advice, Mr. Dickerson from the cabinet shop, two brothers who argue about torque, the high school coach who buys duct tape like it's a vitamin. Sarah, my wife, used to work Saturdays with me. She could carry on 3 conversations and still count the till to the penny. We've been married 22 years. We were the couple people pointed to when they wanted to believe marriage could be both simple and good. Sunday roast porch lights drives down to the lake when the peepers started up. When people asked, I'd say we were doing fine. That was true enough for a long time. Then there's Mark. He's the son of Sarah's stepmother, so not blood, but attached by the branches of that side of the family tree. The town knows him from the bank and the golf course, and those blue ties he buys 3 at a time. He wears them like he's telling you something about himself. When he walks in the shop, he smiles, big calls. Me boss man, raps his knuckles on the counter like we're in on the same joke. I haven't laughed at the joke in years. We have a friendly kind of tension, me and him, like two guys fishing the same spot of river rods, far enough apart to be polite lines crossing underwater where you can't see. He came around more last winter when he said he was helping Sarah with a refinance idea. He talked about equity like it was a pile of leaves you just rake into a different corner. He dropped terms and brushed lint from those ties. He was careful with Sarah's feelings in a way that made me itchy. Business stayed steady. If I close my eyes, I can walk the aisles in my head. Fasteners are on the left, plumbing on the back wall, electrical near the register, because folks always forget a wire nut after they pay. The receipts printer coughs like an old man. I keep a stack of old invoices under the counter, carbon copies from before the software upgrade, because sometimes paper is the only thing people trust. The neighbor across the alley hung new wind chimes in May. On breezy days, the notes drift through our cracked delivery door like glass tapping glass. At night, after we lock up, Sarah and I would sit with the TV on low. She'd rub her temples with the tips of 2 fingers. "It's just a lot right now," she'd say. "Work?" I'd ask. Everything she'd say and smile without showing teeth. We went to church more when her stepmother Elaine got sick 2 summers back. After the treatments, she seemed to float more than walk. Mark started handling some of her money stuff, or that's what he said, and then he started helping other folks too. "I'm good at moving things where they belong," he told me one day, leaning on my counter. I smiled. I kept wiping lemon oil. I don't know when I started noticing the little offbeats. The fan ticking rung the bell ringing once, when no one came in the ledger, coming up short a dime, and then long a dime, and then right again. Sarah stayed later out visiting Elaine, or catching up with Mark on the loan paperwork that never seemed to end. I told myself it was family. Family is heavy sometimes. You lift where you can. The week before Founders Day, the committee asked me to help with the AV because I'm handy and because the guy who usually does it moved to Phoenix. Simple slides, the sponsor logos, the raffle, Elaine said. She was chairing again, thin as a bird, stubborn as always. "You always keep your books clean," she said. "We could use that tone right now." "Sure," I said. The fan went tick, Tick, tick over our heads. The bell over the door gave a polite ding when a breeze drifted through and then quieted again like it had changed its mind. Folks came and went. We refilled the screw bins. We cut a key for a man who held his hat in both hands because it had been his father's lock on that shed. I sold a level to a young guy with a new house. He asked me how to tell if something was straight. The bubble doesn't lie, I said. You want it between the lines. That night I walked our trash out to the alley. The wind chimes were finally still. I stood there a while breathing the shop smell on my shirt, lemon and oil, and a little sawdust from where I'd planed down a stubborn door for Mrs. Conley. I should have gone home then. I should have gone straight home, set my keys on the bowl Sarah keeps near the door, listened to the fan in our kitchen click like a polite clock and slept. But I didn't. I drove the long way past Elaine's place to see if she needed her trash cans pulled in from the curb. That was the story I told myself. It looked fine from the street, quiet as a prayer. I kept going. I didn't know I was about to trip a wire I couldn't untangle. I didn't know I was about to see something that would split my life into before and after. I'm a slow man by habit. I like my counters, polished my screws, sorted my word good. I caught my wife with her stepmother's son. I did what no husband dared to do. But that line lives farther down the road from where I'm standing now, in the space after a wind chime stops and a bell decides whether to ring. It was late afternoon when I pulled up behind our house. The sun had gone flat like a sheet of paper pressed to the sky. The big maple out back threw a shadow that cut the yard in half. I left the truck off and coasted the last few feet. The driveway gravel barely sighed. Our kitchen window faced the alley. Sarah liked to keep the curtain open a finger's width so light could spill onto the sink. She says it keeps the soap from souring. From the gate I could see that sliver. I could see our lemon yellow dish soap bottle, the blue sponge in its little holder, the glass we keep on the sill for change. And I could see a slice of our kitchen table, the corner, where the wood has a knot that looks like an eye. The wind pushed the neighbor's chimes once. A single clink. Inside the house, something knocked to maybe a chair leg. Then a laugh. Sarah's. Low. Not her church laugh. The other one? I didn't walk to the door. I stood by the fence and looked through that finger's width. Sunlight fell flat across the table, made a bright line on the wood. I saw Mark's tie first. Blue. The shade he wears when he wants to look important. It hung loose. His jacket was on the back of my chair. Sarah's hair was down. She never wears it down at home unless she's trying to feel better about a hard day. I told myself all kinds of things in one long second. I told myself they were looking at papers. I told myself he spilled coffee. I told myself I'd knock in a minute. Then a hand moved across that line of light. Not mine, not hers. And the chair bumped the floor again. There's a sound people make when they forget anyone could hear them. It's a soft, foolish sound. I heard it. I could have pushed the gate. I could have gone in and shouted, thrown a chair, broken my glass, change cup on the tile, done the thing the movies teach you to do. My chest burned like I'd swallowed a nail. The kitchen smelled like dish soap and lemon and the faint iron of the old cast iron pan I'd washed that morning. The ceiling fan clicked in the kitchen. You can hear it even from the gate, if the window's open at all, counting off its wrong beat like a witness. Tick, tick, tick. I didn't go in. I set my palm on the fence post. The wood was warm from the day. The grain bit my skin like advice. The wind moved the chimes again. A dog 2 houses over barked twice and then quit. Someone on the next block started a mower and stopped it, adjusting something, starting it again. The whole town breathing in and out, same as always. I took a step back. I didn't want to be a part of that sound inside my kitchen. I didn't want my voice in that room while it sounded like that. I got in my truck. The seat was still warm from work. I put my keys in the bowl in my imagination and heard the bell over the shop door instead. Ding! I started the truck and drove around the block and around again until my hands stopped shaking. Then I went back to the store. I didn't turn on the overheads. I stood behind the counter and let the dusk find its way through the front windows. The lemon oil smell was still there from the morning. The ceiling fan in the shop ticked its little lie. I put both hands on the counter and looked at the old invoices stacked under the till window like they were a map. When the bell over the door rang, I jumped. It was just the wind. I laughed at myself once loud and it sounded like it came from someone else. I thought about calling a friend. I didn't. People talk. They talk even when they try not to. I needed silence. I needed to choose something. The projector for Founders Day sat under the counter with a roll of tape and the remote in a sandwich bag. I pulled it out and set it on the counter. I turned it on. The bulb ramped up slow like a tiny sunrise. The beam hit the back wall, made dust float. It looked like 1,000 pieces of paper in the air, every one of them a choice. I turned it off. I locked up. I drove to the river and sat where we used to park in high school when we weren't supposed to. The water moved like it always moves. I went home after dark. The kitchen was clean. The window was closed. The fan was off. Sarah was in the living room, hair up now, blanket around her legs. Late night, she said. Yeah, I said. My voice felt like a tool I had to borrow. I kissed the top of her head. It smelled like shampoo and a little like someone else's cologne. I went to bed. The ceiling fan in our room made no noise at all. People think the worst part is the moment you know. It isn't. The worst part is the 3 weeks after, when the world keeps asking you to act normal while your bones hum like a power line. I ate dinner with Sarah. I took deliveries. I joked with Mark in my shop like we were the same as we'd always been. I carried on. That's what men like me do here. We carry on until we can do something that isn't carrying on. On Monday, I opened the store and changed every password we had. Bank, email, the software that runs our point of sale. I called our bank and said I needed to put a note on the account, no transfers without my signature in person. You okay, Mr. Haynes, the manager asked. Just tightening the ship, I said. My voice was steady. I wiped the counter with lemon oil while I talked because my hands needed work. I made an appointment with a lawyer 2 towns over, a quiet man named Conrad with a gray tie and a habit of listening until you ran out of words. I told him I wasn't here to talk about my marriage. I was here to talk about my store and my savings and my house. Understood, he said. He explained simple as sandpaper what I could do to protect what I had before marriage, what counted as marital waste and what to document. You don't need to swing, he said. You need to stack your paperwork. I like that. Stacking, I can do. I checked the county recorder's website at night. It's ugly and slow, but you can search anyone's filings if you're patient. I typed my name, the shop's name, Sarah's. Nothing new. I typed Mark's full name. There were a few things, car titles and LLC. One filing caught my eye, UCC financing statement. If you've never dealt with one, a UCC filing is basically a public note someone puts on the record saying, hey, I have a claim on this person's stuff if they don't pay me back. It can be for inventory, equipment, accounts receivable. It's a way lenders keep track of who gets paid first when things go sideways. The secured party on Mark's filing wasn't a bank. It was M&M Holdings. That sounded like a shell, and not even a creative one. The address was a P.O. box. The notary stamp on his LLC papers looked blotchy, like it had been pressed through a napkin. I drove by the post office and out of habit checked which wall the low-numbered boxes were on. I'd been in that lobby 1,000 times and never noticed how many names on that row belonged to companies with no front door in town. At the shop, I watched our bank portal. Most people don't know you can get an alert for logins, not just transactions. I set it up so anytime someone looked at our account, my phone buzzed. On Wednesday, it buzzed at 11:18 p.m. The IP said it was from our home. I was there but asleep. I knew Sarah wasn't making a deposit. In the morning, she asked me if I'd considered consolidating those little accounts we keep for slow seasons. Less to manage, she said, buttering toast. I like the buckets, I said. Mark says. I like the buckets, I said again. She nodded and went quiet and never looked up at me. The toaster clicked. The neighbor's wind chimes tapped twice and then stopped. Life stayed public and small, like it does when you're waiting for a storm that forgets to arrive. A man from the cabinet shop came in complaining about expedite fees on a job Mark's new outfit had arranged. Said it had to clear through M&M to get materials faster, he grumbled. Paid it, then I waited 3 weeks anyway. He bought sandpaper and told me the knives at Founders Day's silent auction were too cheap to be trusted. We laughed and didn't laugh. Mark dropped by Friday in a new tie the color of bottle glass. Busy week, boss man, he said. He picked up a measuring tape and let it snap back like he was testing a leash. Busy, I said. He leaned in. Big news coming. Could be a merger in your future if you play smart. Whitfield's folks are sniffing around Main Street shops. They like clean books. We both know you've got those. He flicked the lemon oil rag on the counter with one finger. That smell, he said, smiling. You and your tokens. I smiled back because that's what we do in this town when we're not ready to fight. You want anything else, I asked. A favor, he said, quiet now. Sarah's been carrying a lot. He didn't say what. He didn't have to. You could help, he said. I'll do what I can, I said. It felt like saying I would fix a squeaky hinge on a door someone else had already taken off the house. At night when Sarah slept, I sat at the table and opened a folder I'd labeled, like a normal person. I put in printed bank alerts, screenshots of the county filings notes on conversations. I put in a photo of my counter shining like proof I knew how to keep something clean. I added a letter from Conrad explaining in plain lines what I could do if someone used our money to prop up someone else's scheme. He wrote about marital waste in the gentlest terms I've ever seen. In the middle of those 3 weeks, there was one afternoon when Sarah came home early and sat on the back steps with me. The light was soft, and the maple threw a lace of shadow on our shoes. She told me a story from before we were married. Her father left when she was 12, and a man he owed money to came to their door. Elaine Young then, not sick, stood there with her hair pinned back and her mouth set. She kept the house. She kept the kids. We were always one bad letter away from losing the roof, Sarah said. I swore I'd never feel that again. I swore I'd be the one holding the pen. She didn't cry. She never cries. I know how I sound, she said, but I can't live in a life that feels like a ledger I don't control. I wanted to tell her I would hand her every pen I own. I wanted to say I knew the scent of fear under a pretty perfume. Instead, I said, we're okay. She nodded and stared at the fence. The wind chimes moved without sound this time, just a shift of shine. On the last Monday before Founders Day, the Whitfield representative came by the shop with Mark, a woman in a gray blazer with clean shoes. She looked at our shelves and our books and smiled with her mouth only. Your numbers are tidy, she said. Whitfield likes tidy. She shook my hand like she was testing a door handle. On her way out, she looked at the bell over my door, the scuffed brass, the little crack where the screw meets the bracket. Charming, she said. Thank you, I said. After they left, I stood under the ceiling fan and listened for the tick. Tick, tick, tick. 3 beats and a truth. I took the projector out again. I plugged it in and watched dust rise in the light, like confetti from a party no one wanted to admit had happened. Founders Day fills the banquet hall with the kind of light that makes folks think every table could be a postcard. The floors smell like wax and lemon. Someone always overdoes it with the polish. There's a stage, a podium, a screen. The rotary banners hang a little crooked, like they've been cheering too loudly for years. The silent auction runs along the wall baskets of soaps, 2 homemade pies with names on the cards, an old fly rod none of us will ever learn to use right. I rolled in the AV card after lunch. Extension cords, extra batteries, a square reader for the raffle, the projector with my name taped to it. Elaine, thin and brisk, was bossing people into lines like a field marshal of nice manners. Bless you, she said to me then, to someone else, then to the room in general. She didn't look at Mark. He didn't look at her. That told me more than anything. The Whitfield rep's shoes, as clean as last week, stood near the stage, flipping through a leather folio. Mr. Dickerson from the cabinet shop adjusted his tie like it was a seat belt that had gotten tight. You good with this? He asked me, nodding at the cart. I'm good, I said. I was. My hands were steady. In my pocket was a small stack of index cards and a thumb drive labeled shop stuff, like a person labels leftovers he hopes no one steals. People found their seats. Forks chimed. The mayor said words about heritage and grit. The band played 2 songs they didn't know how to end. Then the lights dimmed, and the projector threw its first square of light. Dust rose in the beam. It always does. People call it magic when they're feeling generous. It's just particles caught in a fact. Elaine introduced the sponsors, then gave me the nod. I clicked through the logos slow enough that the small businesses felt big. Folks clapped in rhythm, not for the slide, but for themselves. Then came the community update part, the minutes and the money. Whitfield's rep cleared her throat. She was going to talk about partnership opportunities. Mark was set to introduce her. He stood, smoothed his tie, and leaned toward the mic. Friends, he said. His voice carried like he'd practiced it in a mirror. Let it play, Mr. Dickerson said from his table, not to Mark, but to me. He didn't raise his voice, but it moved through the room like a sign. I clicked. On the screen, an invoice from my shop with a red paid stamp. Then another from the cabinet shop marked expedite fee, M&M Holdings. A third from the diner donations for tickets that never figured into any ledger anyone could find. Nothing dirty, nothing sloppy, just small things you could miss if you weren't looking. I had pulled 3 weeks of paper and put them in a row. The room leaned forward. Forks stopped. Chair legs shifted. The floor wax smell lifted like a lid coming off. This I said from the back by the cart, not taking the mic. Just letting my voice ride the quiet is why we keep clean books. I clicked again. On the screen, the county recorder's page, the UCC filing in Mark's name with M&M Holdings as the secured party. I explained it the way Conrad had explained it to me. A UCC filing is a public claim, I said. It tells the world someone gets paid before the rest of us if a debt goes bad. Good tool when used right. Not so good when folks don't know it's tied to a P.O. box behind a company that never shows up with a truck. People's heads turned toward Mark, then back to the screen, then to me. I kept clicking. A screenshot of our bank portal login alerts with timestamps I'd blacked out except for the hours. You can tell when someone looks, not just when they touch, I said. Good habit if you like to sleep. The Whitfield rep put a hand on her folio like she might close it over her own fingers. Elaine sat very still. She looked at the wind-up clock on the wall and then at the floor like something precious might be rolling under a table. I'm not here to talk about bedrooms, I said. That's between folks and God and a couple of lawyers where needed. A few chairs creaked hard at that. I am here to talk about the numbers, because this town runs on numbers that match what we say out loud. Clean books, clean names. I clicked again. A text chain appeared cropped to show nothing that would embarrass the innocent. Just a line from Mark to a subcontractor, run it through M&M. Time-stamped the same hour a certain expedite fee showed up. Then a refund receipt my Square reader sitting on the cart pinged as I ran a test dollar. Beep, beep, so the sound would live in the room. If you paid an expedite fee to anyone listed here this month, I said I'm refunding you the same amount from my pocket right now. Because I recommended some of these folks at church and because it's on me to make it right. A line formed without anyone telling it to. Men and women stood with small slips of paper. I swiped, tapped, handed them receipts that curled at the edges as the ink warmed. The sound of the Square reader mixed with the hush of the room and the smell of floor wax and a new note I couldn't place at first. The smell of the projector's bulb heating up a little metallic, a little sweet. Mark moved toward the stage. He did not look at me. His tie blue again flashed white in the projector beam like a fish flaring under a dock light. This is out of context, he said, finally finding oxygen. This is... Let it play, Mr. Dickerson said again. He didn't look at Mark. He kept his eyes on the screen like a man watching a Levels bubble slide home. Whitfield didn't know about the UCC, the rep said, and her voice had lost its polish. We don't engage with vehicles that route through anonymous P.O. boxes. That's a compliance line. She closed her folio like a book of old hymns. A hush, then forks, then the wooden sound of a chair backing up. Someone coughed. Someone said, "Oh." Elaine finally lifted her eyes. She didn't speak. Her hands were folded in a way that told me she was counting silently. When Mark turned toward her, she looked past him to me, the way a teacher looks past the class clown to the clock. I clicked again. On the screen appeared a single page, a list of accounts balances, and a line in simple font. All premarital assets secured per counsel. No community funds to be moved without both signatures in person. Fraud alerts placed. I didn't read it. I let it sit there. I kept refunding. Each beep felt like a nail set straight. Sarah sat 3 tables back on the aisle. She hadn't said a word. Her lipstick was the shade she wears for pictures we put on the mantle and take down when we redecorate for Christmas. She held her purse like you hold a sleeping baby on a bus, gentle, firm, not yours alone anymore. Her face didn't move when Mark finally met her eyes. When she did look at me finally, it was quick and sane, and then she looked back down at her hands. When the last refund printed, I put the reader down and picked up a manila folder. I walked it to Sarah and set it by her glass. The ice clinked once. This is the first half of what comes next, I said quiet. It's about the business and the house and everything we built before we started building other things. It doesn't mention anything that isn't the public's business. I didn't look at Mark. I didn't need to. He was checking his phone like a man who's finally realized the ground has a trap door and he found the handle by accident. "Is this necessary?" the mayor whispered to me when I passed him. "Yeah," I said, "this is necessary." Elaine stood then small and straight. "Thank you, everyone," she said, voice steady. "We're going to take a 10-minute break. Refresh your drinks. Bid on something that won't embarrass you later." There was a thread of humor in it, and the room held to it like a lifeline. During the break, a line formed again, this one, not for refunds. People came by the cart and patted the side like it was a friendly dog. They didn't say much. One man squeezed my shoulder. A woman from church put a folded note by the projector remote that said, "Clean books. Clean heart." I put it in my pocket without unfolding it. Mark stayed at the edge of the room. The Whitfield rep kept a respectful 6 feet like he was contagious with something numbers can catch. Mr. Dickerson set a pen on my cart. "You didn't have to pay those fees," he said. "I did," I said. "I recommended some folks. That's on me." He nodded. "All right then." When we started again, I ran through the last slide, a simple thank you with the rotary wheel, and a picture of Main Street from 1961 that always gets a sigh. Nothing about bedrooms, nothing about shame, just the beam of light, the dust in it, the truth that shows when you let things hang in the air long enough. The projector hummed. The room settled. Outside, the late light went flat the way it does at the end of a long summer day. I clicked the projector off. The dust fell back to whatever it had been before it became visible. I didn't look for Sarah as people stood and moved and pretended to be normal again. I unplugged cords. I coiled them neat. The cart's wheels squeaked once and then learned better. The bell over the banquet hall door rang when someone forgot it was heavier than it looked and let it slam. Ding. People flinched like birds. As I pushed the cart out, the Whitfield rep caught my eye. She didn't smile. She nodded the smallest nod I've ever seen. It said, "We will not be doing that merger." It said, "Some doors close because they should." In the parking lot, the air felt like rain even though the sky was clean. I loaded the cart into my truck. The projector sat on the passenger seat like a good dog that had finally been given a job it understood. The morning after Founders Day, a man came in carrying a drill in both hands like an apology. He set it on the counter and cleared his throat. "I said some things last week," he told me. "About your prices. About you." "I was wrong." He slid the drill toward me. "It's fine. I don't need a return. I just wanted to say it out loud." "Let's check the chuck," I said, because it gave us both something to look at. The fan above us ticked its third beat truth. Tick, tick, tick. The bell over the door sang when he left. Ding. By noon, word had done what word does in a small town. The Whitfield deal went from imminent to under review to off. Mark stayed out of sight. Elaine sent me a loaf of bread by a neighbor boy with a card that said only, "Thank you for keeping your ledger the kind that counts." The church treasurer called that night and said, "We appreciate how you kept your mouth where it belonged." Then she added, almost shy, "and where it didn't." I met Conrad again. We filed what needed filing. We didn't write down anything we couldn't back with paper. The folder I handed Sarah became 2 folders, then 3. We split accounts the way you break a biscuit with a friend you still care about because you remember how to eat without fighting. I didn't ask for more than was mine. I didn't touch what wasn't. She didn't either. We were clean even when we were sad. That has to count for something in a place like this. In the shop, life returned to the shape it knows. I showed a kid how to read the inch marks on a tape. I fixed the ticking ceiling fan for a day, then let it slip back to its old rhythm because I'd missed the warn. I polished the counter with lemon oil. The smell clung to my hands like a stubborn kindness. At closing, I sometimes stand in the doorway and listen to the neighbors' wind chimes. They ring like glass and weather and time. The bell over my door makes its small sound when I flip the sign to closed. Ding! The sound lands in my chest and settles there like a final line. I lost a marriage. I kept my name. That feels like the correct math for a man like me in a town like this. People don't look away when I walk into Rotary. They nod and bring up paint colors or the parade route. The shop hums. The projector sits back under the counter. The invoices stacked neat as kindling. And most evenings, when I turn off the lights and the fan slows and the last tick takes its true time to arrive, the silence is the good kind. It's as clean as a page ready for a straight line. It's as quiet as a bell that only rings when it should.